Is this thing on? Hello. Today's video is not going to be like the other two I've made where I was like goofing off and singing. This one's going to have some opinions in it about things. Welcome to my channel. If you've never been here before, welcome. If you have, welcome back. I am a musical theater actress here in Atlanta, and I like to make videos about my favorite thing in the world, which is theater. So if you saw the title of the video, I'm asking the question, is Rent bad? And the short answer is no. Rent's awesome. Rent's one of the, I think one of the best musicals ever written. It's got charming musicals and very well-rounded characters that have flaws. And I think for a lot of theater kids, even in my generation, it was one of the first shows that taught us what an alternative musical looked like, that brought gay relationships, bisexuals, and the AIDS crisis and drag queens to the forefront of a lot of our minds. It's probably the first show for a lot of theater kids that is like, hey, this is what these things are, this is all that stuff. So the short answer is that no, Rent's not bad. The long answer begins now. I was texting my friends the other day and I said, hey guys, I need some ideas for my new YouTube channel so I'm not just singing all the time. You guys have anything that you'd like to see me talk about? And one of my friends said, talk about bad movie musicals or musicals that became movies. And I was like, where do I begin? And I wanted to look up some different ones to see if I could, what other people's opinions were online, if there were some I hadn't seen yet, because I didn't want to just kind of rattle through Grease 2, other bad musical movie. I was looking things up and I saw someone say Rent, and I was like, whoa, I haven't seen Rent in years. I haven't watched Rent since it went off of Netflix, but I love Rent. I sing it all the time in the car. So I'm super into Rent. I think I know a lot about it, but I hadn't really thought about the show as a whole in years. And I thought, man, someone really thinks it's bad. And I went back and I watched it, and oh boy, I think I agree. It's not great. The first thing that stood out to me, Rent is super duper whitewashed and biphobic. Maureen's promiscuity is totally placed upon her sexuality being the reason why she's so promiscuous. And I get it, it's kind of key that she is like that. She is rebellious not only against the ideas of society, and that's why it's important for her to be bisexual, because for a long time society said you were this or you were this. It was black or it was white, and she represented all the things that weren't black and white because she was so rebellious and out there. But the issue with that take and using bisexuality as a metaphor for not fitting in with the black and white rules of society is that you make out that you think bisexuals are all promiscuous. And that's not true, and it's super duper harmful. It's not explicitly said that Maureen is a bisexual. She just liked men, and now she likes women, except she still kind of likes men, but she's with a woman. And she kind of, gets treated like a gay woman, which is fine. It's just that she's bi, and being bi is a super unique experience, and it's not the same as being a lesbian. And it's really erasing her experience as someone who loves women and who loves men and who loves anyone else by saying that she's just a gay woman. And yeah, that comes with the misunderstanding of the sexuality, which is only about, 2 decades old at this point. I mean, just to start off, that's really biphobic. I mean, that it's not even said out loud that she's a bisexual. And don't get me wrong, we're having this issue today on our television where we're creating bisexual characters, but we're never really calling them bisexual. I don't know what our fear about that word is, and I really can't dive into it today. But we as a society are super duper afraid of the word bisexual and saying that people are, that we are. That we can always go on and be like, she's Maureen, she wouldn't like labels. But the fact of the matter is, if you're going to claim to be this super progressive musical that puts LGBTQ people on the forefront, what do you think the B stands for? The next big part of why this musical is super duper problematic going back is just for the fact that it kind of whitewashes a lot of gay rights activism from the 1990s. The AIDS crisis at a lot of times felt like a white gay guy's disease, but it's really, really not. I have a double major in public health, and I study STDs a lot. It's kind of like my obsession, and I'm really, really into the AIDS crisis. And the HIV virus has always affected, first and foremost, young black men who have sex with men. That's really always been the target. even though it's kind of treated as this uptight, white, gay New Yorker disease. It's not. And I understand that it can feel like that sometimes because that's kind of the only representation of it we've ever had. Because we kind of, as a society, when we did get around to doing something about HIV, put a lot of attention on those white dudes and not a lot of attention on the poor black men who are also suffering from the exact same illness. Yeah, we have Angel who has the AIDS virus, and I guess that's important that she's a black trans woman. But again, this is a trans woman that it's never explicitly said if she's a drag queen and she just likes to dress up in her drag often, or if she's a trans woman living her life as a trans woman. And again, you can say, well, you shouldn't have to say it's not about labels, but when you're creating a movie or a musical where, again, you're really pushing to be this progressive piece and be the voice for all these people that were voiceless, it's kind of important to say it like that. You know what I mean? And they just don't. I think it's kind of problematic that the last shot of Mark's film is a picture of Angel, or I guess is a shot of Angel out of drag. Because if she is a trans woman, that's kind of disrespectful for them to be like, and here's Angel, her real self, out of the drag, because that was clearly a very important extension of who she was. In fact, we really only see Angel when she's out of her drag, when she's dying in the hospital of AIDS, making it kind of problematic that they would think that this is the real Angel when it's clearly not the real Angel. And I know I'm only talking about the movie right now, but this really rubs me the wrong way because it's clearly used in those scenes to show that at her weakest, she can't even dress herself up the way she prefers to present to the world, and that somehow Mark thought it was appropriate to immortalize her in this really small documentary he spent a year on with a photo of her or a shot of her completely out of drag. You're going to memorialize a trans individual, or honestly really even like a drag queen. Figure out before they die what they represent as. I just think that's important. And again, everyone will probably say that Angel's a drag queen until the end of time because we just don't know. Just like we don't know for sure if Maureen's bisexual or not. Because this was a really important musical that was written to embody the entirety of the 1990s when it was so important to just use those words. It's always going to be important to use those words, but it was extra important then to say things like bisexual, trans woman, gay man, because it was telling people like these things are real and it's okay to be them. The AIDS epidemic, and again, I've done a lot of study on this, the most important people when we were going through this were men who had sex with men, most importantly, poor black men who had sex with men. These were the people who were most at risk in the 80s and who, in my own home city of Atlanta, are most at risk now. Because if you didn't know, Atlanta's going through its own AIDS epidemic at the moment. So, I don't know. Tell me why a white guy is like the poster boy for dying of HIV in Rent. I know he's not the only one who has it in the movie. It's just like, the movie's about Roger. Like, we're all on the same page that Roger's the main character of Rent, right? Just checking. He's got it as a white guy, and it's like his disease that he picked up from someone he loved, and it's all about drug use. And yes, you can get it from drug use, and there is a stigma surrounding drug use, and it's important to break that stigma. But also, this movie doesn't do a lot of good things for drug users. The entirety of Light My Candle kind of just makes Mimi and Roger seem like two people who completely lack self-control. Yeah, it's hard to break an addiction, but the caricatures that they paint of two severe addicts is really, really problematic for me. Addiction's a disease, just like HIV. It's not like they don't want to be better. They have self-control. Human beings are human beings. And it kind of just makes drug addiction feel still so far off and unreal. I don't feel like any stigmas are broken. You have the stripper, who's addicted. She so cares to the wind about her addiction, and she doesn't care about other people who are trying to recover. And you've got this scorned guy who quit only because he's really got the disease and his lover died of it, and now it's kind of awkward. Why can't you paint a more appealing picture if you're trying to give humanity to these two? The only other person who has AIDS is Collins and Angel, who kind of get thrown to the side in this movie. We just really don't see enough of them. And I know we all love them enough that they don't really need a ton of scenes, but it's like, come on. These guys are who's really being affected? Poor black men who have sex with men, and they get the least screen time out of Rent. And guess what happens to fucking Angel? She dies. She's the one who dies. Now it's kind of like, oh, we put a woman-loving woman in this piece of media, but we're gonna kill her pretty quickly. We don't want her in there too long. It's just what it reads to as me. And then the last things about Rent that kind of make me feel like Rent's not super duper great. I guess it's cool and really useful to put the original cast in the movie, because I know a lot of the issues when they're making musical movies today is throwing random Hollywood actors into these roles, despite the fact that these Broadway actors have dedicated years to honing their abilities to film these kind of things. And it never adds up right when you just put Russell Crowe in a recording booth and say, you play Javert. The issue with Rent the movie is pulling these people years after the last time they debuted these roles and saying, play these young 20-somethings from New York. I'm sorry, everyone looks really old in that film now that I'm an adult. Not to mention that whoever was making the movie took some awkward liberties with cutting things out, inserting weird other stuff, and also having them sing a lot of really important lyrics. I feel like the book was kind of changed a little bit too much for me to handle for the movie. Also, when you're with a musical, things that work on stage just don't translate that well to film. Looking back, it's an okay movie. It's fun to watch, but speaking as far as what makes a movie good, it's really not that great. That doesn't mean I don't like Rent. I think it's a really important show. I just think that we need to understand that it hasn't aged super duper well. I think that Rent stands as an example that growth and activism is always going to change. And that the more that we make things better, that doesn't mean the fight's over. What Rent was fighting for back in the 1990s is completely different from what we're fighting for in 2020. And I think that's really interesting. And it's an understanding that Rent's not bad because it's problematic. It's problematic, and that's kind of what makes it good. It shows us that activism isn't always going to be perfect, but it's going to mean something when you do it, and it's going to take years of theater kids and theater goers and tell them about a really important time in history that their high schools aren't going to educate them about. And it says this happened, these people exist, have sympathy for these people who are poor, people who believe that housing is a human right and we shouldn't have to pay rent. It stands the test of time because it's showing that giving a shit doesn't age. Just how we have to is gonna age. Being a compassionate and empathetic person, your job's never done. The rules are gonna change, pronouns are gonna evolve, our sexualities and our understanding of them are only going to get more difficult. And it's why things like Rent seem like they don't age well. And it's because they don't. And I'm sure years from now, everything that we're doing today is going to seem archaic. Because as we continue to improve our understanding of LGBTQ and their experience of the world and where they fit into our society and undoing years and years and years and years of trauma and oppression, we're gonna realize what causes hurt and what doesn't. And it's always gonna be changing. And Rent stands as an example of something that was super progressive at the time, seeming really, really old and super out of date nowadays. Am I saying that you should not watch Rent ever again? No. Go. Listen to Tango Maureen. Love Tango Maureen. Love the character of Roger. Love the character of Angel. Do whatever you want. Because at the end of the day, it's a wonderfully written show. I'm just saying that when you watch it or you listen to it again, just do so consciously. And remember that times are changing and what's expected of us as people is going to keep evolving. And that's okay. Just be open to it. Thank you guys for coming to my channel today. I've enjoyed talking to you so much. As always, stay beautiful and hopefully I'll have a cover up on Saturday. Okay. Mwah.